Hello everybody, welcome to Quilt Lab with Sew in Common, where we create beautiful patchwork with the hoop of our embroidery machine. I'm Diana. Thanks so much for joining me on my channel. Today is the first weekend in May, so we're starting a brand new block called the Blooming Star. That's what we're going to be working on this month, and things to go with it, and projects and all kinds of fun stuff like that. If you are a Quilt Lab subscriber, you will have received your code last night to download your project pack. Otherwise, stay tuned till the end and I will show you how you can get your own project pack if you're not a Quilt Lab subscriber. Although we'd love you to be, you could certainly join Quilt Lab as well. Even though Quilt Lab has been going since February, if you do join now, you will get the project packs from all of those months, February, March, and April. I will send all of those to you. So don't worry about missing out on anything like that. So this month we are working on a brand new block. Last month was 5440 or Fight. You can still see those blocks hanging around. And I'm still working on my quilted project. Let's see, I think I still have that here just in case anybody else is interested. This is our quilt project. It's a 45 by 45 wall quilt. This is my design and it's called Totality. And when I share how to get your project pack at the end, that's where you can get the information sheet and the project pack for that quilt as well. So I'm still working on mine, guys. It's been a busy week, but I'm getting things done. So that's always good, right? When you're productive and it's a busy week, it doesn't feel so bad as when it's a non-productive week and you feel like you're just chasing everything. I get that for sure. Still got allergies going on, so no eye makeup today, but I did manage to do my cheeks and my lips today for you guys. I know, I look like I'm dead, but right now the allergies are so bad. My eyes, I just want to claw them out. It's horrible. If you guys feel like that too, I feel for you because I know how bad that is. All right, everybody. So this month's block is coming. We're doing kind of 3 different sizes. The last couple months, we've been doing the medium to jumbo sizes, the 9 by 9, the 12 by 12, the 15 by 15, that 15 by 15, like you see back here in these blocks. I love that size. But sometimes I also like to work in block sizes that are more traditional in quilting, 6 by 6, 8 by 8, 10 by 10. And you'll recognize that 10 by 10 because the Riley Blake block challenge that we're doing, all of those blocks are 10 by 10. So today's block, this month's block, you could work in with your Riley Blake block challenge if you wanted. This is our block right here, folks. It's called the Blooming Star. I created this block for us. This is the 10 by 10 size, and I left 2 of the Dalesford blocks from the Riley Blake block challenge hanging so you can see how this is the same size. So it could work in really well. Now, it's hard to see my fabric here a little bit, so I'm going to show you my fabric in a moment. Now, this video, when I'm done chatting with you all, there's going to be a little video on layout because this block does not go together in our traditional columns or rows. It kind of goes together from the middle out because this month we're working with the idea of putting our blocks on point. So you can see right here in the center, this block center is on point. And that's something in quilting that I think is really, really beautiful. But in traditional quilting, I have issues with how we do that because I tell you this in the layout too. I feel like we waste a little fabric in the traditional method, putting blocks on point. It's got a lot of measuring in it. It just was never my thing. So even though I've been quilting for decades, I never really put a lot of on-point blocks in my quilt. But we're going to get used to it with the Build A Quilt system this month with our Blooming Star block. Now let me show you how I went about. If you look real quick, did you see the block there? Actually, let me bring that block up for us. Hang on just one. Okay, I've got that block. Let me bring it up. It'll be easier to show it to you this way. So here is the block for this month. And I put it out in kind of the traditional colors, the Build A Quilt colors that I put everything out in, that beautiful aqua that I love, that light kind of a warm pink, and that buttery yellow. And so when I went to pick fabrics for my block, the one you see here, the only really thing is kind of that warm pink. Everything else changed. But I went to our friend, the Color Cube. You guys remember we talked about that more at the beginning of the month. And I ended up pulling these two cards. One, this one, because I adore lilacs, and everyone's lilacs are blooming in the neighborhood now. Isn't that a beautiful bouquet of lilacs? And look at the beautiful colors here. Really gorgeous. So lilac gray, lilac, dusty purple. They're calling this one mint and emerald. I just think they're gorgeous. So we actually have a brain malfunction. We actually have a lilac bush in our garden, but it is a Japanese dwarf lilac. So it doesn't bloom at the beginning of the season. Ours won't bloom probably till the end of this month or beginning of June. And but it's a beautiful lighter purple and darker. It's kind of a mixture of these purples. And so I love it. So I pulled that card, and then I pulled this card too, because this has the lilac in it. Oh, whoops. Let's see. Where am I on this? There we go. It has the lilac in it. And it has a steel blue. That's what they're calling this one. And a teal down here. And then it has this pink and kind of this greenish, limeish green. And so I used those two from Color Cube. I believe these are from Color Cube 1 to figure out colors for my block. And you guys know that I'm a little bit tipsy when it comes to Tula pink, right? You guys knew that. So I dug into my Tula fabric, and I found this. It's kind of hard to see it. It's got this pattern on it. It looks just like lines, but when you look in here really closely, I'm trying to see if this scrap piece has one on it. Ah, yeah, right here. It's got little bitty beetles on it. I know that's really hard to see, but right there, there's a little beetle. But I liked this because you know how Tula's colors all kind of go together, and Tula's colors, really, there are some of those kinds of colors in these cards. So this is that kind of a lime green, but it has that tealish color in it. So I pulled that, and that's taking the place where we see the yellow in this layout. And then I chose this kind of I would call it a salmon color. It's a little bit lighter than what you're seeing on screen. It's a true kind of a salmon color, and that goes perfect. And then I chose this other Tula fabric right here. Now you can kind of see this is I think it's a turtle. Am I right? It's a turtle. It's a creature. It's not a turtle, but maybe it's an owl. No, it's not her owl. It's hard to see what it is, but you can kind of see it in this piece right here. But when I use fabrics like this, I cut them as if they're solids. I don't worry about getting these fussy cut and all, unless I'm intentionally looking to fussy cut fabric. Then I'll work with that. But I didn't with this one. I just cut it. Now, I'm going to give you a tip right here, folks. When you're cutting, except for your quarter square triangle that you're making in the middle, where you're going to be cutting 2 squares, all right, and they have to be a specific size, so you'll have to cut that size. For everything else, cut your strips 4.5 by 4.5, or cut your strips 4.5 wide, because then you can measure. You're going to be cutting some blocks that are 4.5 by 4.5, so then you just slice them, and some of them are 4.5 by 7, so you can just go down 7 inches, slice, that kind of thing. So you'll only be working with one width of your fabric strips for cutting your fabric. And of course, all of the cutting details are in the pattern pack. So, but those are the 3 I chose, and this is how it turns out. And I swear, when you look at it in person, it's gorgeous. It does not translate on screen. I'll be the first to say that. This color looks way dark on screen, and this you can't see the pattern in it at all. But when you look at it right here, it turned out really beautifully. I love it. It just doesn't, it doesn't picture well on screen, but that's okay. It's not, you know, it's going to be used in not a screen form, but I love how it turned out. In the layout video, I talk about how we put this together. Again, as you can see, there's no blocks or rows here because these are corners. And these corners we're calling modified flying geese corners because they're really simple to a flying geese unit. See our flying, can you see this flying geese over here? Triangle with the two wings. Well, that's very similar here. We have the square, the two wings, and the modification is two more wings out here. So we're doing these in corners. And so all of that is explained in the layout section for you. And then the 6x6 and the 8x8 size as well are your other two sizes. But I really wanted to do that 10x10 so that it could be worked in with the Riley Blake blocks, because we're going to end up with 16 10x10 blocks from Riley Blake at the end of the month when we finish that challenge. And I wanted to give you some other things. I think we might have done a few 10x10s in the past, but not many. 10x10 for me in quilting has always been kind of an odd size. It seems like it would be a real natural size, but 6x6 and 8x8. So for quilting over 5 decades, 6x6 and 8x8 used to be the block size for almost all the blocks that I did with my grandmother. 10x10 was an odd size. Occasionally, when they started blowing blocks up, 12x12 became really popular, and they kind of skipped over the 10x10. I know it's been out there some, but it just wasn't as common as those smaller sizes. And then 12x12, and then somebody blew it up to 15x15. Now we're doing 18x18 and 24x24. I love those big blocks. The bigger you go on a single block, you get a whole quilt done a lot quicker. But this is our blooming star. So you can choose any fabrics you like. As always, you can choose the fabric colors that we have here, or you can choose any fabric colors that you like. In fact, I probably will make another one for next week using fabrics that show up a little bit better, because I think you guys will see it better. But I loved it. And I love the fact, let's take this Dalesford one over here down. If you joined us on Thursday for the Riley Blake Day, we did not have a block this week. It's a skip week, but we will for the next 3 weeks, because then we're done. Okay. But this is my Riley Blake Dalesford block in different fabrics. I'll link this video at the end and you can see what we did, because I went ahead and did a video for us showing like some of the different things you can do with these blocks if you don't, especially if you don't want to make the full-size quilt. And I know there's some of you out there that don't want to make the full-size quilt, but look, the block for today, the biggest size of 10x10 fits right in there. So there you go. You're going to end up with another one. Yay. I love that, right? That way we have more to play with, more to work with. So after this video, there's the layout video, and then are the demo videos. So there's a demo video specifically for this corner. And right after that is a wee little bonus section of something else that you can do with that corner, because I love giving you those extra tips and tricks. Because one, it adds to the array of stuff you know how to do with Build a Quilt already. So if you're creating your own quilts, you can go, oh, I've got that. I could do that other thing. Oh, you know, get you excited, inspired. And you can, if you see it in another quilt, in another quilt pattern that you purchase, you're like, oh, I already know how to make that. I know how to do that. I've got those segment pieces. So this is our modified flying geese corner unit. And then another thing we're working with in this block this month is the triangle. And I talk more about that in the layout section, because we don't typically work with just single triangles. but there's a very specific reason why we are this month for this block. So you'll see that in the layout section. And then our center is just a quarter square triangle, but that video, so there'll be a triangle video and a quarter square video. For those of you who have never done Build a Quilt before, you can follow all the way through and know how to make each segment. And in the layout, it'll show you how it comes together with your sewing machine. Now, if you're new, don't get worried about doing it with your sewing machine. You do not need a 1/4 inch foot, because I know that keeps some people away from quilting. They're like, I can't do this 1/4 inch business. You don't have to with Build a Quilt, because on the back, actually, maybe it'll be better to see it on this Dalesford. On the back, the last thing you do is stitch a line. No, you can't see it on here either because it's white. Well, maybe you can. There's a line there that stitches out at the end. That's a guideline. And when you go to stitch your blocks together, you just put your 2 blocks together, stitch down that line, and you get the perfect seam every single time, right? Now, the first couple times you do it, you might want to play and try it until you're familiar with it. But like 2 or 3 times and you're going to be a pro at it. Trust me, you will be. And I know a lot of folks have started quilting with Build a Quilt because they couldn't get those 1/4 inches. And so that's the nice thing about Build a Quilt is you don't need a lot of extra tools. You don't need, if we were doing this traditionally, you need special ruler. Don't need it. You don't need a 1/4 inch foot. Never. So even though you finish these on your sewing machine, you're just making straight stitches right down those lines. No problem at all. And then pressing as always. Alrighty. So also, if you're new, you'll need wash away stabilizer. I'm just mentioning that real quick. Most folks who've been with us for a long time know that. But wash away stabilizer, just like you use for freestanding lace. And then when you're done with your block or your segments, I have a whole video, 2 whole videos on how to either get rid of your stabilizer in the individual segments or how to get rid of it in the whole block. And you can find those. In fact, I will add this link, and I will add the link to all of the Build a Quilt playlist. But in the comments, I'll put the links for the stabilizer videos for anyone that wants them, okay? All right, so there's going to be 4 mini videos, or 5. Layout, corner, bonus for the corner, the triangle, and the 1/4 square triangle at the end, okay, everybody? All right, remember, folks, there is no Wednesday workshop during the month of May. We're doing some rejigging. You guys saw me get all emotional in a video I did last week for us. If you haven't watched that one, you might want to watch it because we've got updates coming, new things, great things, but we're rejiggering some things. So no Wednesday workshop this month, although I'm going to throw in some extra videos here and there. But Thursdays this month, we're finishing up the Riley Blake Block Challenge. Can't wait to see what the next one is. We only have 3 more blocks to go. And then Quilt Lab subscribers, you should have received your code last night. If you did not, let me know. But if you're looking for this month's set for this block, the Blooming Star, you just need to go to our website, www.sewincommon.com. You get all the digital files for all 3 sizes. You get the cut sheets. You get our exclusive coloring sheets, so you can color it in with your pens or crayons, whatever, to kind of play with color before you start cutting fabric. I find that to be extremely helpful. I look at my fabric and go, I just don't know. But if I sit down and color with those colors and go, you know what? No. Or, oh yeah, it is going to be good. And then I can go and grab my fabrics and then cut them. So you get that. You get your information, and of course you have your how-to video right here on this video. Next week, we'll be back with something new with this month's block or this month's idea around the Blooming Star, which is things on point. right. Okay, everybody. So there is our website. If you need to contact me, if you have any questions about this video, please leave your comments below, because then I can answer them and everybody can get to read them too. I don't have a problem with that. But if you have something more private that you want to talk to me about, support@sewuncommon.com. I'll get back with you as soon as I can, usually within an hour or two at the most. If I'm not making dinner or watching a movie with my husband or something like that, and I see it come through, I'll just answer it right then for you. All righty, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today for Quilt Lab and the Blooming Star Block for May. And as always, you know what I'm going to say. Please subscribe if you haven't, because we need you to be part of our family here at Sew in Common. Most of all, please like and share these videos. That way other people can join as well. That's how this group has grown so much, and we appreciate you all so very much. Check out our website, though. That's where our patterns are. That's where we have free patterns. All of the Riley Blake patterns are free. And we have our pattern sets and our Build a Quilt system blocks, basics 1 and 2. So check out all of that over at the website. And we'd love to have you. And until next time, everybody, as always, have a great week and go sew life beautiful. Bye for now. Okay, everybody, here we are at my cutting table, and I wanted to bring you over here today because I want to show you how you lay this blooming star out and put it together, and talk a little bit about how things can be used for other projects as well. I always love giving you that extra. Now at the after this part of the video starts the demo videos, and after the demo for the corner, we're calling this the Modified Flying Goose Corner. After that video, there's another little bitty video that shows you kind of a mini extra project, or something, not really a project, but something else you can do with these corners. But let's go ahead and flip the camera over and we will get started showing you the layout. All right, here we go. So here is our block deconstructed. And let's just deconstruct a little more. Those are our 4 corner blocks. These are our 4 triangle blocks. And these 2 sections come together to make our quarter square triangle. And that's where you'll start. Go ahead when you're doing this layout, lay it out kind of like you see here. Just like I always show you the layouts. Now, typically we do rows and things with these. That's not the case with this block, because if you can see, this block has a section that's on point. On point blocks are really beautiful in a quilt, but in traditional quilting, they can be a little bit wonky or a little bit of a pain to make. There's a lot of extra cutting. In my opinion, doing on point blocks in traditional quilting, you have to waste a lot of fabric. I hardly ever did on point blocks when I quilted traditionally in all the decades I quilted, because I don't like how you do the on point part. But with Build a Quilt, it's super simple. So let's start here. We're going to put these 2 together. That's going to make our quarter square triangle. Then you've got your 4 triangles that you've created. Super simple. We don't typically use just triangles, but in this case, that's exactly what's going to give us the on point. So you're going to take 2 of them that are the same color opposite one another and add them to each side of your quarter square triangle. Then you'll take your other 2 and add those to the other opposite sides of your quarter square triangle. Now, if we just move our corners out of the way, you have a beautiful block on point. Now, how would you put that in a quilt? Well, the part is to add 4 corners to it. And in our case, the corners are going to make it into a square. You always kind of have to make it into a square somehow. And these 4 corners turn it into our square for our blooming star, the actual design of this block. However, if you wanted to do this part in any fabrics you wanted, maybe you wanted your quarter square to be 4 colors and things like that, and then have 4 colors on the outer parts, or all 4 of those triangles the same to act kind of as the background of whatever you were doing in the center, then you can do that. Then you just need to add 4 triangles, 4 more triangles, but in this case, there are corner blocks. Okay, super duper simple to do. Now, if we take this off point and we turn it 90 degrees, we're going to get just a regular square, which could be used as well. And the way this fans out, let's see, let's flip this around just a little bit. If we were doing this as just a regular square, let's put our colors matching one another. Now, that in and of itself doesn't look like much because it looks like 4 squares. But when you expand it out, you could end up getting, you still get that quarter square look in the center, but when it expands out, you see how the color keeps flowing in the same direction, pink in this way, green in this way. And so that could end up giving you secondary patterns between your main blocks. But for our block, we want these to be on the opposite color, just like that. And then when we put in our corners, we'll put that back on its point, just like that. And we put in our corners because our fabric for our corners or our star points or our blooming points for the blooming star are this green. They match up with this green that's on these outer side, and it kind of gives you that overall bloomed out look there. So there's lots of things that you can do with these pieces. And I wanted to make sure and share that with you. Let's go ahead and remove that. I wanted to go ahead and share that with you so that when you're looking at pre-purchase or purchase quilts, pre-designed quilts that you buy, quilt patterns, you can look and go, oh, you know what? That's really cute, but this quilt is really basic. What if I took all those corners out and I used this kind of a corner block instead? What would that look like? And play around with your pieces. Make some maybe simpler quilt, more basic quilt. If you're a more advanced quilter, turn it into your own design. Really smarten it up the way you would want to see it done. Or if you're designing your own quilt and you want to put something on point, you've got the whole idea there for putting something on point. So I hope that helps. Now, after this video, we're going to start the demos. This is your first demo, and then there's a tiny little piece after it to show you something, a bonus, to show you something else you can do with those corners. And then there will be the quarter square triangle and the triangle demos. So enjoy. All right, everyone, here we are at my machine. This demonstration is for what I call the modified flying geese corner unit because it's made very similar to a flying geese, but it has the extra modification of these side wings, and it is specifically for the corner of a project. It will make the corner of a square, as you can see there with that 90-degree angle. And then you can see that these 2 little wing pieces end up making points for your stars. Okay, excuse me just one second. I have a little bit of allergies going on today. I apologize. So here on my hoop, I have stitched out step 1 and machine step 2 directly onto the stabilizer. Step 1 is the overall size of the unit. And step 2 is the placement for the first piece of fabric. And as we can see, the first piece of fabric is going to be our square. So whatever fabric you're using for your square, that's what you'll want to put here. And I'm going to put a little bit of my glue stick there and take my fabric. Now, I always give you a piece plenty big enough. If you place it the way I'm going to show you now, you can technically cut a slightly smaller piece. So here are my inner corners right here. I need to make sure that I have roughly a 1/4 inch of fabric on the outside of these lines, and of course the top and the sides. So if I just placed it like that, which is perfectly fine. I'm going to cover everything, and then I'll need to do some trimming here and here. However, if I place this roughly a 1/4 inch to start, and I can feel that line, so I know from there to there, that's roughly a 1/4 inch. Good. And if it's the same on the bottom, and I just press that down, then my sides I don't need to worry about because those will be trimmed at the end when we trim the whole piece out of the stabilizer. Now I'm going to place that back onto my machine and we'll stitch that down. And that is this piece right here. Or it might be in that direction, or that direction, or that direction. You know what I mean, because it's going to be that square. So now if I laid it out the way I just showed you, I don't need to do any trimming at this step, which, you know, we always love it if we don't have to do trimming. Now, if you laid this out and there's more fabric here and here, then just come in and trim to a 1/4 inch or roughly a 1/4 inch on each side. Now, the next piece we're going to do is, so this is fabric A. We're going to lay down fabric piece B, which in this case is my green. And so I have my triangle, kind of a funny triangle. Looks like I didn't get this pressed, so I'm going to, there we go. I'm just going to use this other piece. Now, for laying these out, it's kind of a funny thing. So what I do is I lay it down and then I flip it just to try to make sure that I'm going to have enough fabric there to cover. So sometimes it will require that you lay a different side. Typically laying the long side down works really well, but on this piece it needs to be this long side. Right there, I just lay it right sides together, or pretty sides together. Now we'll go ahead and stitch that down. And on this unit, I put my fabric glue down after I flipped it to make sure it's going to be in the right place. Because a couple of times I did have to just snip my wing out and redo it. But now if I lay this down like this, that's going to cover more than plenty. And there will be one little piece of trimming. I'm going to put my little piece of glue right there. Lay that over, give it a little finger press, or I could press that with a seam roller, either way. And now we'll stitch that down. And this is machine step 5. Great. Now there's a little bit of trimming on this one, and I'll show you that here in a second. This is fine. This is the outside of the unit and will get trimmed when we're done. But this piece right here is the inner piece. So we are going to trim that with our snips, roughly a 1/4 inch. Just like that. Perfect. Now we'll take our next piece. And on this piece, what I like to do is I like to lay my fabric down and say, okay, that's how it needs to go with the point here. So if I do that and I flip this, when I flip this over, will it cover? And it will. Let's try it and see if I do it on this long side. Oh, looks like I would miss my corner there, so I don't want to use that side. What about this side? Oh, no, wait, no. So on this one, it looks like using this shorter side gives me the better fit in the long run. So we'll do that. Place this back in, and this is machine step 6. I've given you these pieces that are a little bit more triangular shaped because I find that with this technique, it's easier to use a fabric shape that is similar to what you're trying to stitch, if at all possible. And you didn't cut that. You cut a rectangle and then sliced it down the diagonal. So there we go. See, that'll be perfect now. And now we'll do machine step 7. And then we're going to repeat these 2 steps over here on this side. Okay, I'll bring that out just a little bit. And I'm going to lay my fabric down. Will that cover everything? It certainly should. So I think if I put it on this long edge, we're going to be okay. Right sides together as always. And I'm just going to use a pair of tweezers to straighten up my thread there so it doesn't unthread itself. I have a machine that loves to unthread. I think it gets an A for unthreading. Okay, now I'm just going to put a piece of my glue there, a little swipe of my glue. I guess it's not really a piece, but you know what I mean. Now we'll flip this forward. Give it a little finger press. I always like to kind of hold these down a little bit, but keep your fingers far away from that needle. You don't want to accidentally get caught there. Now we are going to do a little bit of trimming right here. That gives me a nice 1/4 inch right there, so that'll be really nice when I go to cut this out. Now I'm going to trim off right there. And now I just need to do my last piece. So again, that's how it needs to lay down with the point going that way. So if I just flip that over and put it like that, yes, that should work just fine for me. Lay that right there. And I'll go ahead and put my glue there because I'm pretty sure that's going to be okay. And we'll stitch that down. This is machine step 10. Okay, now we're going to flip this. Give it a little finger stitch or finger press. There we go. Now the last thing we need to do is do our stitch all the way around, machine stitch 12. And we need to place a couple of pieces of our tape. When we look at this, it's going to start here and it's going to work its way around. Okay, so it could get caught here because that foot could flip that back. So we're going to lay our tape outside of the line and hold that down. And if your tape ever can be taped onto your stabilizer, it's going to hold really well there, I've found over time. And then we keep coming down. Now it's going with this seam, so not a problem, but that one could be another one where things could get caught. So we'll put a piece of tape there and then it will finish. So we need 2 pieces of tape, looks like, on this one to make sure that it goes okay. Now this specific piece is used for our Build A Quilt blooming star block, but you will also start to see it in other blocks. And because you have it now in 3 sizes for a 10, an 8x8, and a 6x6 inch block, you can always add these into your quilts as corners if you want to create your own blocks. So now you know how to use this piece and how to make it regardless of what pattern that you're using. And now I would just take this over to my cutting table and trim a 1/4 inch all the way around so it looks just like that. Hi everybody. So this little short is a bonus for some things that you can do with your modified flying geese corner unit. You know, I always like to give you these extra little tidbits and things so that when it comes to making your own quilts, or if you're looking at quilts and you see things, then maybe you'll recognize them and know how to put them together, or you'll figure out how you can use them in your own quilts. So here I have my glass-headed straight pin and 3 little quilting clips right here. And I have 2 of my modified flying geese corner units. Okay, and what you can do with these, because they do create that 90-degree angle on each side, if you put 2 of them together, you get this fun little block. Now, this isn't quite a bow tie when it comes together, but I'm going to sew it together here in just a moment and then show you the finished piece. So let me show you how you would do this. I take my glass-headed straight pin and I put it through right there in the corner, right where these 2 wings come together. And then I put it through on the other side. It's the pin method. We've done that. I've done videos for you, but that helps me get my whole piece nice and straightened up. And then I'm just going to put a clip there, and I'm going to put a clip there. And then I'm going to hold that nice and tight, take my pin out, and put a clip there. Now I'm going to go over to my machine and I'm going to sew my seam, and I'll be right back. Okay, here I'm back, and here's our little block all sewn together. Look at how nicely our point came in the center. So it almost looks kind of sci-fi-ish to me a little bit, like an, oh, if you're a Star Trek fan, it's kind, or a Star Wars, kind of like an X-wing fighter a little bit. Sorry, but that's just what it reminded me of. But that is a little block that would make a nice little transition block. It could make a nice little cornerstone block. And then, of course, you're just going to trim your little dog ears off on these 2 corners. And here it is pressed in the back. So now you can wash out your stabilizer, and it's nice and pressed. And that would fit into a quilt beautifully. And now you have the ability to make a 5x5, a 4x4, and a 3x3 with the sizes that you have if you have our blooming star block. Okay, enjoy. Hello everyone, we're here at my machine. This is the demonstration for a simple triangle block, just like the one we see here. I know it's hard to see, but if I hold it up, you can see where the triangle is. Now, triangles aren't used a lot, but sometimes they're used to create larger squares. So you'll have a square, and then you'll put a triangle on each corner, and that will give it a larger, make it a larger square and turn it 90 degrees so you can have your inner square on point. So it is a useful block to have. And typically you start out using a rectangular piece of fabric, and then you trim around it when you trim it out. It's just like making the square, which is 2 simple steps. The first step is to stitch machine step 1 directly onto your stabilizer, which is wash away. Then you'll put a little glue. There we go. Now I'm using my gray thread that I always use, but let me take it out so you can see it better. You can see, and that also is not only the boundary of this piece, but it's also the placement of this piece, because it's just that simple. Now I'm going to put a little triangle and a dot of fabric glue there, and I'm going to take my piece of rectangular fabric and just lay it. I know there's my point. I've got plenty of room here. There's the bottom. I've got plenty of room here, so I can even move this up and give myself plenty of room on top. There's my top and bottom, so I'm great. There's my sides. I'm great. Now we're going to do machine step 2, and this piece will be done. That's how fast and easy it is to do triangles. Now, if you have our blooming star block, that is a block where we used these triangles to set our center square on point. Now, if you do this in a traditional way, there's lots of measuring and cutting and all kinds of craziness that has to go on to get those right. But it's really simple to do with our embroidery machine. We just do what we just did. And now we have our triangle. I'll cut that out 1/4 inch all the way around, and I'll be ready to add it to my block. Enjoy. Okay, we're back at our machine, and now we're going to create the 1/4 square triangle. The 1/4 square triangle is basically, typically, again, 2 fabrics. And in this case, we're still going to use the yellow and the aqua with the yellow polka dot for my demonstration. However, there's something fun about the 1/4 square triangle because it can be used with up to 4 fabrics. You could do each quarter in a different fabric and have such a super scrappy look to your project. And some projects that you decide to do might call for that. Or it might call for you to 3/4 in one color and the 4th quarter in a second color. That creates a whole different look. Or it might say to create 2 in one color and the 3rd and 4th in different colors. You can really play with this square. It's very versatile. Here's the other thing about this square. Now, when you make this block, you make it in 2 parts. You are going to make 2 halves that look just like this. Here's my first half. I haven't trimmed it out of my stabilizer yet. And now we're going to create the second half, which looks just like this. Don't change anything. Don't flip your fabrics or anything like that. Do it exactly the same, because when you go to sew these together, you'll put them right sides together, sew them, and then when you open them, they come out just as they're supposed to. But I'll show you more about how to do that when we go over to the trimming section of the video. So here we are. I have my stabilizer again. Now I'm going to do my first stitch out, which is my border and my placement. This one kind of is a little different in that it has a border and a placement. And I have my fabrics here, my yellow and my aqua with my polka dot. And again, I'm stitching out in black. I am doing a 4x4 square for you in these demonstrations. If you were doing the 2x2 or the 3x3, you could fit multiples in a 5x7 hoop. Now, I will just tell you one little tip here. I'm actually using a 6x6 hoop. Brother and Baby Lock have this 6x6 hoop, and I'll take it out here in just a second so you can see how it attaches, because it is my favorite hoop for when I piece. Okay, let's take this out. See, if your Baby Lock or Brother has an attachment arm that looks like that, check with your local dealer for a 6x6 hoop. I think you'll truly love it. Okay, so here is my border. And I've got a little piece I need to trim here. My thread's doing something a little bit goofy today. I'm not quite sure what. And I'm just going to go ahead and rethread just to be on the safe side since we had a little bit of issue last time. Alrighty, so I've got my border, and you noticed it also gave me this line here, which separates my upper quarter from my side quarter. So in this one, just like with the half square triangle, I'm going to start this, and you'll see this on your placement template, is space 1 and space 2. I'm going to put my little bit of glue stick there. Now, you don't have to use glue stick, but I find it helpful. And then I have really given you generous fabric cuts here. I would rather have a little bit of waste than have some problems with not having enough fabric or something shifted and then it shifted out of place. So I always give you plenty. Now we're going to trim these, not here and here until the end, but so you're looking at this to try and place for your quarter inch. Now I can feel that, and I can actually see this one because of the black, and I can see right there's my black line. And so I know I've got a good quarter inch there, and I'm just going to stick that down. Now we're going to do the tack down stitch. And again, if you want to kind of lay that right in the middle and trim it at the end, that's okay too. And you can see when I trim, I will have a little bit of leftover, but honestly, like I said, I'd rather have a little bit of leftover than not enough. So first piece was right side up. Second piece is going to be laid right side down, but before, well, I don't have to do that yet. So let's do this. I'm going to lay it right side down. And here's the trick when doing the quarter square triangle. How do I lay this triangle so that when I flip it, it turns out like this? You lay it just exactly on top of the other one in the same direction. So don't lay it like that. That would be wrong. Okay. Lay it on top exactly how you see the yellow one or your first piece of fabric, whatever color that is. And I'm going to lay it here, and you can see, I see a tiny bit of my yellow peeking out, and I'm talking about just a sliver of your bottom fabric should stick out. Okay. Now we've got that there, and we're going to stitch that down. And you can see what happens when we flip it. Okay. Now I'm going to place a little glue right there, and I'm actually going to bring this out a little bit, and I'm going to do my flip. And see how nicely that flips right into place. Super easy. So I'm going to stick that down with the glue. And now I'm going to bring in my seam roller and roll right on my seam. Now you can finger press. Here's my one tip or scenario about finger pressing is that when you finger press, you tend to stretch your fabric. So when you use a seam roller, it's not doing that. It's not pulling them in opposite directions like your fingers can. That's why I like the seam roller best. And now I see why my piece keeps coming unthreaded, because I keep pulling it out when I'm taking my hoop in. Alrighty, so here we go. We're going to do now step 4, which is going to tack our second piece down. Now I'm using my fingers there. Here's a good place to use your stylus or your stiletto if you'd like to do that. Now again, we're going to do step 5. So there's only 5 steps in each half. And that is going to be to stitch down our final box. And just so that you can see what I was talking about before, I will go ahead and place a piece of my embroidery tape right here. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and place a piece of my embroidery tape on this join as well, just so you can see that you can do that easily because it's just going to peel off at the end. And then we will do the final stitch out there. And then we'll have our 2 halves. And when we do the trimming in the last section, you'll see how they come together. But the reason that you need to do this particular block in 2 pieces is because of the flip and stitch method. Let me show you what I mean. Let me grab my little one that I did in a hurry. So if I did, there we go. If I did this one and flipped it, and then I came over and stitched this one down and flipped it, look what happens when I would go to do the 4th one. It would end up with an interior, kind of like a Y seam almost, or that interior seam, and you couldn't flip it. So by doing it in 2 pieces, you don't have to worry about that. And it really doesn't add extra difficulty. It just basically adds one more tiny step. And here we are. We're done with our second half of the quarter square triangle. And so when we go to do our trimming, we'll have these 2 together. Let me fold this down. And we'll end up with our whole quarter square triangle. So let's move on to stitching out our square. And I'll tell you why we're going to stitch out a square, because there is a really good reason. Stay tuned.